Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So in this one, we have decks for the hot location tonight, and this is Sokovia. This one is discard a card from each player's hand. So this is another one, kind of like the new location we had this week, where this actually doesn't severely impact the game all that much. So if you're not a fan of hot locations, don't worry too much, because this one really doesn't ask you to do a whole lot of building around it. Though obviously discard decks are going to get a little boost from it, but outside of that, I think you can really get away with playing kind of whatever you want. Just have to be aware of what you're discarding, what the opponent's discarding, and if that puts you in a favorable or unfavorable position. But we got some decks here for all the pools for this location. Starting out with pool number 1 here, a pretty standard zoo deck. A lot of the just good pool 1 cards. Bunch of 1-drops, all the good stuff. Ant-Man, Elektra for dealing with the opponent's stuff. Squirrel Girl for going wide. Nightcrawler for tough locations and that Angela synergy. And Rocket Raccoon because a 1/4 is pretty good. Then 2-drops, we have Angela, who scales up real well. Sentinel keeps giving us stuff to do. Fantastic gives us ways to play for multiple lanes and sometimes the lockdown locations. Captain America gets a nice buff for our swarms of cheap stuff. Bizarre and Blue Marvel, the zoo staples for buffing up the team. And then Chavez as a big thing to play on the final turn and to give our deck more consistency. Moving on into Pool 2 here, we have a Pool 2 discard deck. So discard, kind of a bit underwhelming of an archetype until you really get some of the Pool 3 pieces, but knowing that there's going to be a high chance of discarding stuff due to the hot location, I think it gets enough of a boost where it might be viable in Pool 2. So we have pretty much every good discard card you can run in Pool 2. So we have Blade, Morbius as a payoff, the newly buffed Wolverine as a nice bonus if it gets discarded, Swarm for another payoff for the discard, Sif to discard our Apocalypse, Swordmaster, same kind of deal, and then obviously Apocalypse for more synergy. Now we do have MODOK in this deck if you have the Season Pass, but you definitely don't need it to play this deck. I do think it will give it a boost though, as being able to slam MODOK on turn 5 and get some Swarm, Wolverine, and Apocalypse discards going right into the final turn of the game is very powerful. But if you don't have MODOK, you could replace him with just another higher up thing on the curve, or you could make this deck a bit more zooey and go with another 1-drop or a 2-drop. Just some replacement ideas like Iceman, Angela, etc. Other than that, we do have another Pool 2 card here in Storm, who just kind of helps us shut down a lane, and then Jessica Jones, who pairs very nicely with her ability to do that. But that is pretty much the deck here. Chavez also gives us a bit more consistency and another thing to slam at the end of the game if we haven't been busy making a big Apocalypse. But that's the deck for Pool 2. Let's take a look at Pool 3. Moving on to Pool 3 here. First up, we have the Pool 3 upgrades to the discard deck. This is the KM Best version that we featured earlier on in the week for the new location, and I think this is a really solid way to go with discard. It is very similar to the Pool 2 version, but we have 2 main upgrades here from Pool 3, and that is Colleen Wing, who is enabling us to discard our Swarm more consistently. This is one of the stronger things the deck is aiming to do, so being able to take advantage of this card more often, definitely going to boost the power that this deck has. And then we also have Dracula here. Dracula, just really powerful card in discard, kind of replacing Jessica Jones here as something we can just slam and forget about in our Storm lane, and just has very natural synergy with our things like Apocalypse, America Chavez, and obviously our Morbius. I really do like this version of the deck. I think it's very solid, and I can definitely take advantage of this hot location. Another deck that I think can really utilize this location to max benefit in Pool 3 is going to be an Agatha deck. This is one I played the other day on stream and had a lot of fun with. Gonna have some highlight games coming up with it soon. But it's just Agatha Hela. So Hela is known for being a very RNG heavy card. So figured if we're going to try and take advantage of that, we might as well just go full RNG with Agatha. With the location showing up more often, we'll have a free chance to just discard Agatha or one of our other big things here in order to make our Hela or Ghost Rider get some more consistent value. We are running both Wave and Lady Sif to try and get more consistently being able to play out our Agatha or discard her from hand by third turn, and then we can kind of take control and find a way to win the game with our remaining cards. In terms of discard here, we do have MODOK, who is a pretty big boost to the deck, being able to discard our whole hand when we still have Hela in the deck, and then just being able to slam her on the final turn is really sweet. Hellcow for a bit more consistent discard. Sandman, because we're only playing one card a turn, so we can kind of lock down the opponent while not really caring about the effect. Jubilee helps us get our Hela if she's still one of the last 2 cards or 3 cards in the deck towards the end of the game, and can also help get us our ways of cheating out Agatha. Then Captain Marvel, because sometimes Agatha is not going to play things where you want her to, so this can help us win with those poor placements. This one definitely more of a fun and competitive deck, but sometimes you get lucky and it can steal a surprising amount of cube. Next up here we have the Mad Titan himself, Thanos. Thanos is one of the decks that I think is just really good in the game right now. A lot of different versions of him going around, but this is the version I prefer. I do think if you want to just play a deck that is normally good into this, Thanos is kind of nice, because you're often cycling through your cards with all the Infinity Stones, and especially because of the Mind Stone here, there's a decent chance you'll have a few extra cards in hand, so the odds of you actually hitting a card you don't want to get discarded will be lower. So that can kind of work in your favor, but this deck isn't really optimized around the location at all, as there's not really a way to optimize around the location for it. It's just a really good deck with good cards and should do just fine with the hot location. Thanos did get that buff recently to 11 power, so that's pretty nice. I know some people are cutting Magneto from the list, but I do think there's actually value here still, and I do think the pull effect is a bit underrated right now. A lot of people running Shang-Chi in the armor spot, but I'm a believer of it is often better to kind of be proactive in what we're doing with Thanos rather than being reactive with stuff like Shang-Chi. Also doesn't feel as bad when it pops out of Lockjaw, which is going to be our game plan a lot of the time. The rest of the cards here are pretty standard inclusions. I will say though, Leech feeling like one of the best and most impactful tech cards in the game right now, alongside Arrow. So just by having these 2 in your deck, I think it's a pretty big boost. And last but not least, we have a Stature deck. This is another KM Best special, though I have seen a few different people trying different lists with Stature. Unfortunately, as you can see here, I don't actually have Stature. I'm saving my tokens for some other future cards, but if you happen to pick up Stature recently when she dropped, or if you happen to open her, this seems like a very optimal location for her, because she will be a 1-cost 7 power, and it's going to happen quite a lot naturally that your opponent is discarding a card from the location. It's also kind of cool if you've been wanting to make use of Black Bolt. He has some pretty cool variants, and I know some people have been wanting to get a chance to use theirs, and if you have Stature, this seems to be the way to go with it. Other than that, we are a pretty general good stuff kind of deck. Just a lot of really good cards here in their different mana slots. Iceman for the initial disruption. Zabu because we have some powerful 4s to cheat out. Sentinel and Lizard, some early game all-stars. Fantastic, just his name says it all. Really fantastic at spreading the power around. Polaris is nice with all the Thanos going around, as you can sometimes just close them out from one of their lanes by moving a stone. Shuri, she's Shuri. I don't think we need to say anything else about Shuri. Busted card. Shang-Chi, because there's so much big stuff going around right now. White Queen gives us an alternate win condition and just decent power and information. Arrow, much like Shuri, she's Arrow. Your deck is going to be better by having this card in it. Black Bolt, kind of memed on, but with Stature, he is definitely a little bit better, though I do think people are overrating the Stature builds a little bit, but they do seem pretty fun and decently effective. Then obviously Stature, who I do not have here, but definitely a core part of what this deck is trying to do, and can probably take advantage of the location well. But those are all our decks for the hot location. And again, we will have the deck links in the description if you want to import them into the game. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.